It is time for another book list. And this time around, I wanted to give some attention to Allie the cat. She's my OG street cat. All of my cats are rescues in one form or another, but Allie is one who about 11 years ago, right about now, was born in our old backyard. And her mama was Avery the cat. And we could never catch Avery to get her fixed, sadly. So she had 2 litters in our yard and then disappeared. And all of her litters, both of her litters, I think she had about 12 cats in total. And Allie was part of the second litter. And as you see from her little ear, we were able to get her fixed. We took her and her brothers and sisters into a vet that fixed feral cats, and she lived out in our backyard. And then when we moved here, and I know this is more than anybody wanted to hear about on a book list video, but this is what you get with this channel. So we moved out here almost 4 years ago, and Allie was a feral cat in my backyard. And my youngest daughter absolutely adored Allie, and I did too. I mean, all of us did, but me and my youngest daughter, we were the ones specifically that really liked Allie. And I would go out and call her by her name, and she would come up to me, and we would hang out just like this, right, Allie? And on right before we moved, because she was a feral outside cat that didn't really like to be, contained. And we had too many cats at that moment to bring her inside and cause turmoil in the cat world. So when we were about to leave, my youngest was getting very upset about the future of Allie and saying, "What's going to happen to Allie?" And I was upset too. But I said, she is a feral cat, and it's going to be a chore to get her. But I said, here's the deal. When we're about to leave, if we can get her, she comes with us. But if we can't, I mean, we can always come back and look for her, but there's no guarantee that Allie's going to be cooperative. Well, spoiler alert, I went out the night before we were about to move. All of our furniture was out of the house. We spent one more night on sleeping bags on our old floor before we were about to head here. And I went outside, called her, and she came right up to me. Right, Allie? You came right up to me, and she spent one night in our old house. And she was very good, very well behaved, used a little litter box I had set up for her. And the next day, she drove out here with me, and she sat up in the front seat with me and purred the entire time. I've never seen a cat so chilled out about riding in a car. But Allie was like, I'm with a human that I love, and life is good. So anyway, there's Allie. Allie is the one in my profile picture. And she's still a little jittery from being a street cat. But Allie is my buddy. So Owen's my buddy too, but Allie, and then I've got another cat that I've decided there's no such thing as a normal cat. There's like every cat has some kind of advanced state of neurosis. And there's one of our cats that is named Millie that lives in me and my wife's room and will not come out. Like, she hangs out in there, and that is her happy place. She did that in our old house. She did when we moved here. She hangs out in our room and does not want to budge. She doesn't want anything to do with anyone else in the house but me and my wife. So Millie's kind of my primary cat, but Millie doesn't know that there's Allie. So, and I know that probably more information about the cat dynamic in my house than any of you wanted, but after several of you said positive things about Owen in yesterday's video, I thought Allie deserved a little bit of the spotlight, because Allie's still very much around, and like I said, she is in the profile picture here on my channel, so she definitely deserves some love. So Allie is, like I said, right around 11 years old. So now somebody can jump in the comments and say the video starts here. So anyway, so this is, one of you asked about this yesterday, and I thought this was actually a really good idea for video. And this could easily be double or triple probably at least double the size of books. I almost went ahead and did 20 books, but I was like, that's a little too much. But I mentioned in a recent video that that some of the books I'd had to buy again, like the, let's see. Actually, we'll start with this one since I ended the last video with it. The Final Events by Nick Redfern. And this is one that I bought back, I think, before I moved. And I'd read it over the course of a few work days, like at lunch. This is one, there's several places I like to go to eat when I was living in Richardson. And they got used to me just coming in with books to the point that some of the wait staff would be like, what are you reading now? So I like to think that I had a positive impact on some of the wait staff at Taco Ocho about some of these books. Because there was a guy who waited on me several times, and then I came in one time with a new book, and he started telling me about a book he was reading then. So I was like, good, it's contagious. Anyway, so this is all about books that I have bought twice because I lost the original copy or someone borrowed it and didn't bring it back and had to go chase it down again. And someone pointed out that that's a good standard for a book being good, is if you had to go out of your way to go run it down again, it's probably a decent book. And this is one of those books. I had no clue what happened to the original, but I was about to do a review on this one because I had just been reading Michael Heiser's Unseen Realm, and it made me think of some of the content in this. And then I was reading Karla Turner's Taken again recently. And anyway, on all of that material was all kind of in that same, that's on the same kind of topic of the religious kind of alien occult angle of the UFO phenomenon. So anyway, so then I had to go buy this one again. So these are all the books that I've had to re-buy over the years. And this is a wild list. There's some in here that may shock and confuse and frighten some of you, and others that you may be like, okay, I can see that. So anyway, so that is Nick Redfern's. And again, this is one I just reviewed, and I think I've reviewed every one of the books in this stack. So you can go elsewhere on my channel. If you're on a PC, you can go to the main channel page and just search the title and you should be able to find the review. But anyway, that is Nick Redfern's Final Events. And this is one I'm also going to do a deeper dive on this in the member section because there's a lot to digest with this. And this is one I'm definitely going to be coming back to probably multiple times because there's just a lot of information about the role of Jack Parsons in all of this, and just there's a lot of threads to pull on in this book. So this is one I definitely recommend. So now the second one is a fiction book, and this is one I dug out for, I was looking for it for a top 10 list for this channel and looked all over for it, and this is very hard to find even on eBay or Amazon, and couldn't find it anywhere. And so naturally I went, bought it again. As soon as I bought it again, then I found it. So this is a fictional book about the cattle mutilation phenomenon. It's called The Mutilators by Mervyn Casey. And this definitely has the artwork of a 70s book. Yeah, 1976. So yours truly was a pup when this came out. Oh, second printing is from 1977. So it actually went through a few printings here. This came out at the height of the whole cattle mutilation phenomenon, and to the author's credit, it actually talks about the more esoteric angle of it, of not just crazy cow-crazed aliens flying down to Earth carving up cows. It actually gets into some of the occult angle of the like Mithra, I think, or I'm trying to remember some of the pagan gods and their tie-ins to some of that. And that's why I'd actually wanted to find this for a review I did, again, of like a top 10 list. So some really interesting, valuable information in this, in spite of it being a fictional book. There's just a lot of good information about covert operations and the tie-in between covert operations and cattle mutilation. And that's one of those topics that I'm surprised on this channel some of the people that stumble across that and kind of shocked that I'm including that in something that I talk about. And I will admit, if you had asked me, in 1995 about that topic, I would have been like, yeah, whatever. Even though I was kind of curious about the topic of aliens and secret bases and all that, the cattle mutilation topic didn't really measure much on my radar until I started realizing there was a connection between cattle mutilation and chemical biological warfare and a lot of covert operation stuff. And then you start to realize, okay, there's a reason this has been buried and obfuscated with so much, other like alien topics and other like really fanciful stuff to distract from the real motivation of it. Because again, as soon as you start talking about aliens swooping down and carving up cows, most people stop taking the subject seriously. And this book, to its credit, does not fall into that. It does talk about some of the alien angle, but from a much more balanced perspective. But anyway, if you can find this is a fun little read, a quick read, somewhat dark fiction, but still fairly entertaining and all. And that is The Mutilators. Now, moving right along, still in that same topic of the UFO phenomenon, is UFO Revelation by Tim Matthews. And I think this was published in 1999. And this is an old library book. This is one, from 1999. And this is one, again, that I think I might have loaned out my original copy and then had to run down another copy. This is one of those books that really upsets people. And I don't understand why, because I think there's some very valuable information in this. This is all about UFOs as a very terrestrial, very earthly phenomenon, and about a lot of the classified programs that came up with exotic propulsion techniques and all that kind of stuff. A lot of really good information about secret aircraft programs and the topic of UFOs from that perspective. And this is one of the books that I read. I think I originally got this either in 2000 or 2001, and I actually bought it, paid full price at Barnes & Noble. And when I first got it, I was kind of disappointed thinking, oh, it's a debunking book. And then the farther I got into it, I was pleasantly surprised because it really helped connect a lot of dots about these exotic programs and kind of hinted at this effort to deliberately make it appear as though these advanced programs were extraterrestrial spacecraft. He doesn't really go full into that, but touches on that a little bit. And there's some really surprising information about airships or airship technology or lighter than air aircraft. And what I mean by that is like blimp aircraft, like basically using helium or hydrogen to make a lighter than air ship that floats. And a lot of us, when we think of that, we think of the Hindenburg and we think that ended badly. So that's probably old throw out, done technology. And not at all. This is, there's a lot of airship technology that is still very much a thing. And back when I was making sales calls for a company that sold composite materials, there was actually a few that another sales guy told me about in the Fort Worth area and the areas around Fort Worth that were working on some of these programs. Sadly, I never got a chance to actually talk to some of these guys, but directly. But I heard several stories about these programs that were developing this kind of material. And one time, in fact, I think this would have been like 2003 or 4, I was working downtown and a blimp came through downtown. I don't know if it was for a sports event or something that was happening, but it was the most surreal thing because it was huge. It wasn't the Goodyear blimp, it was some other brand. And I didn't even know that there was another one out there flying around, but there was another one and they're huge. And it really messes with your head to see something that gigantic moving silently. And at the time, this one was kind of making this weird turn, kind of a helix down into kind of the downtown area of Dallas. And it looked surreal. Just seeing it in person, it didn't look right. And I remember it kind of messed with my brain because it was such a massive object floating through space like that. And then when you experience something like that, you see how something like that can be used to exploit the human senses to believe that you're seeing an alien craft of some type. So anyway, lots of valuable information in this. This is one that I've talked about with some people. People either love this or hate this. And for a while, this was very hard to get. I remember at one point I was recommending this to someone, and I went on Amazon, and it was going for over $100. And I think it's since dropped back down again. But overall, important reference material about exotic aircraft programs. Now, this is one very controversial from 2008, In Defense of Israel by John Hagee. And this is one that I loaned out and then had to go and find it again. The guy I loaned it to probably put it in a shredder because he found it complete heresy. And it is, but it's also important reference heresy that we need to know about. So in I believe it was either late 2007 or beginning of 2008 when this was published. Probably 2007. Yeah, 2007. I first heard about it in spring of 2008. And what this is about is John Hagee making this impassioned defense of the modern political state of Israel. And of course, about Christians needing to fight this anti-Semitism and that sort of thing. But in this, he said Jesus is not the Messiah, which, because of that, caused in the Christian circles, caused huge turmoil. Very briefly, though, because, boy, they put a lid on it fast. And I think there was even an effort to recall this book, some of the earlier copies, and kind of subdue some of the language on it. So I actually have a couple of copies because I was trying to find if there was any with more inflammatory language about that. But basically, this comes out and says what the Scofield Study Bible doesn't really want to actually put in print. And that is, the dispensationalists do not believe Jesus came to be the Messiah the first time around. Now, if you're a hardcore Baptist, Pentecostal, or whatever that believes the dispensational kind of theory, you may find that horrifying. But if you read the fine print, if you go through and read your Scofield Bible carefully, I think Matthew chapter 11 is one of the parts. It's really crucial to that. They say Jesus initially came to be the Messiah, but I believe it was in Matthew chapter 11, they say that he kind of switched gears. He was like, they're not ready for it yet. So he was kind of the Messiah, lowercase m, but not capital M yet. So when he comes back the next time around, that's when he's going to do it. But he decided after he was rejected by some of these Jewish cities that he wasn't going to do Son of God thing this time around. So as a result, the Pharisees can't really be held responsible for their rejection of Christ because he wasn't living up to his mission there. So they were seeing him for what he was, as a failed Messiah. So fascinating heretical take on this. And this is definitely a good companion piece to the Scofield Study Bible, which again, I think is also heresy, but it's important to see how all of that stuff works and the thought process behind modern dispensationalism. Because a lot of people believe that and have never really dug into it and realize just how insidious it is and how theologically bankrupt it is. Because it's one of those things, you can only arrive at that position if someone walks you through Scripture and takes you from here to here to here to here and everything out of context. Because if you just sit and read your Bible, you would never come to this conclusion. So anyway, important book. This is one I don't loan out anymore because there's some of these, depending on where you're looking, sometimes they can be hard to find. But I think this is important for people to see just what kind of guys John Hagee, those guys really are like, what their values truly are. And if you want to see some of this online, it gets taken down all the time and people put it right back up. But look up on YouTube, Hagee Denies Christ. And you'll see the video of him pitching this book, explaining that. And it's not AI. That is legitimately John Hagee. But his audience wasn't quite ready for that yet. So like I said, they kind of had to back off of it. And it was only a big splash just spring of 2008 before they walked that back. And they never really retracted it. It just kind of, hey, let's look over here somewhere else. Maybe something else is going on. Now, this is one that kind of frustrated me. I dug, this is a good book, but the situation frustrated me. And then the reprint frustrated me. So this is The Truth About False Memory Syndrome by James G. Frison. I think I'm saying his name right. And this is all about the False Memory Syndrome Foundation and how that's a bogus syndrome. It doesn't stand up to scientific scrutiny. And the thing is with this reprint, and this is where I'm just killing me that I can't find the original copy that I had, because I have one of the original prints from 1995 or 6 or so. And I think they took out some of the original material that was in this that did a whole breakdown of all the kind of a who's who of the people that made up the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Now, if you're not familiar, in the early 90s, I think they popped up around 92 or so, there was a group called the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. FMSF, I think, is there, or something to that effect. And they've since been disbanded. They disbanded in 2019, in fall of 2019. Very quietly. Took people a little bit to figure out, hey, wait a second, where'd these guys go? But they were very vocal, and they were going after any cases where someone had recovered, or what they perceived to be recovered memories of abuse. And I have another, a book by a woman around here somewhere, Lynn Crook. Her book is an excellent breakdown of that case too. And I almost included that in this stack, but Lynn Crook's book, you can look it up elsewhere on my channel. It's called False Memories, something about false memories. But anyway, they went around and were kind of expert witnesses on a lot of cases, basically trying to put down any child abuse cases or any cases of sadistic abuse, trying to get those pushed out of the news and made to sound silly. And they did a great job of it. They got a lot of traction, and they convinced most of the general public that that was even a thing. And a lot of their studies, and he does a good job in breaking this down, explaining how this does not hold up. This is not a real thing. A false memory doesn't exist. Those two things don't fit together. It's like saying something is a false truth. It's like, if it's a memory, it's not false. If it's false, it's a fantasy. It's not a memory. But Frison does a great job of breaking that all down. But it's driving me nuts. I need to keep searching, and maybe one of my kids has a copy. My oldest daughter was in the psych program for a while, and I got, and I was loaning her some of the books about this topic, and she might have my original copy, but I'm pretty sure that one had a whole breakdown of all the people, because a lot of them had connections to the CIA, a lot of them had occult connections, some of them had even published CP, CSAM, is that the way to say it? There was a lot of very questionable people, and one of them, I think it's Elizabeth Loftus, I think is one of them, or Pamela Freud, I can't remember which one, is like married to her stepbrother. There's some really weird stuff in all the people, all the high-level people in the False Memory Syndrome or Foundation are all highly questionable. And lots of weird stuff came out about all those people. And they were used as kind of a blunt instrument to smack down anyone with any case connected to like MK Ultra or occult abuse and things like that. So definitely worth looking into that, because unfortunately, because they had so much support from mass media, a lot of people still take them seriously, even though they should not. And I was victim of that to a degree. I had heard some of that stuff, and I consider, oh yeah, that's just a false allegation or whatever. And then when you start looking into the group, you're like, holy cow, these guys are messed up. So anyway, that was one I bought again, and I'm a little frustrated because I think this is a modified. I think this is modified from its original format. Now this is one, this is definitely a controversial one. This is one that I had in my banned book list. This is the Synagogue of Satan. And all this was published, I think, also in 2007. Originally 2007. I had to find this on eBay, because by the time I realized I couldn't find my original copy, it had been purged from Amazon. So I haven't been able to find any bookseller that sells this. You might get lucky. There might be some others out there, and there might be a PDF version of this out there in the wild. But I actually found this on eBay, and even on eBay, it was usually sold with something else to kind of justify it. Like, hey, we'll sell you this deck of cards, and with the deck of cards, you get a free copy of Synagogue of Satan or something to that effect to get around some of the restrictions on it. What this is, I remember seeing this on a website that I was going to that had some alternative news site stuff. And I remember the cover art alone was like, really? Come on. But then I saw it later in Half Price Books in Dallas and thought, well, it's only like $4. I'll grab it. So I did. And it did not disappoint. This is all basically just a timeline. And you can argue with some of the way the history is presented in here, but it's basically a timeline starting in, with very little actual like commentary. It starts in I think the 1700s, but there's only just a little bit of the book that's actually the kind of an introduction and explaining some of the history. And it starts with, I believe, the Rothschilds. 1744. And then it ends in 2006. Yeah, it ends in 2006. And I actually found an updated version of this too that I need to go through and compare the two. But it's basically a timeline of world events and just showing these in the light, in light of contemporary things like Zionism and how that's affected world events and all. So again, you could argue that whenever I dig out this book, people are always speaking, that's not true or that's not true. But again, a lot of it is like 1946, on January 3rd, William Joyce is executed. As he awaits his execution, he makes his last statement. In death as in life, I defy the Jews who caused this last war, and I defy the power of darkness which they represent. I warn the British people against the aggressive imperialism of the Soviet Union. May Britain be once again, great once again, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, lots of hidden history in that, and a lot of stuff about like Andrew Jackson and the central bank and all that sort of thing. Just a lot of trivia in this. So even if you totally disagree with the author's overall premise, there's still a lot of valuable history in this book. And the fact that this has been banned from Amazon should tell you a lot right there. But anyway, that is Synagogue of Satan by Andrew Carrington Hitchcock. And he wrote a follow-up book, In the Name of Yahweh, I believe it's called. And I have that one too, and I have not reviewed it. But at some point, I will revisit that topic. But anyway, there's that. And true to form, after I got this, then I found my old copy. So now this is one that I bought a few copies of this. Some I've actually given away. But then when I was going to do a review on it, I couldn't find it, so I went and bought it again. Thankfully, this one is not a unicorn yet. This one, I believe, was originally published in 2013 or 14. This is Against Our Better Judgment by Allison Weir. 2014. And excellent book on the founding of the modern state of Israel. And there's been a couple of you that recently got this book and put some positive words about it in the comment section. So excellent book. It's a quick read, and this is also on Audible. So this is very accessible. And I think that is no accident. I think Allison Weir was very troubled. She talks about how she went over to the occupied territories back in, I think, the early 2000s and saw some of the stuff firsthand and was horrified by it, and eventually led to her writing this book. And she's definitely one of those authors I would love to meet. She seems like just a very good, very genuine person, very concerned about just the human rights implications of modern Zionism. So Excellent book. Cannot recommend this enough. This is definitely one of those, again, even if you think that's hogwash, I don't want to see it, this is very valuable history that we should all know about. And some of this will shock you. No matter how much you think you know about this subject, there are things in here that will really shock you historically about the founding of modern political Israel. And and one of the things I was going to show you all is the actual book is, let's see, I've got a dollar bill as a marker in here. The actual book is like this right here. Then all of this is endnotes because she knew she was stepping into a minefield writing this book because there is so much in here that if she didn't back it up, people would be like, you're lying, you're making that up. So she backs it up, she sources it to a fault. Everything is impeccably sourced, and this is another one of those books that's worth it to get just for the sources, just for the bibliography. Take that and then run with that because she mentions a lot of really good books and stuff in this that are also worth checking out. So anyway, that is Allison Weir, Against Our Better Judgment. Now, this is one, I was surprised. I reviewed this the other night. I was thinking about this again in light of some of the media stuff I've been talking about and got this book out again and actually lost subscribers talking about this book, which is a shame because this is, I think, a very important book. And this is definitely on the shallow end of the a lot of the COVID literature out there about what happened in that period of 2020 to 2021. This book came out around the end of 2020. And this is Corona False Alarm, ? Facts and Figures. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the author's names, but you can go back and check my review that I posted recently and see more about this. I think I actually have 2 different reviews of this. But yeah, this is published the end of 2020. Some excellent information about a lot of the statistical information, how the death count was done, how a lot of the data was manipulated. And these doctors were seeing this in real time and trying to raise awareness for this, and then of course got shouted down, and they explain all of that as well. But that period of time is really worth examining closely, no matter, again, where you are on the political spectrum. It deserves being revisited. And if we don't, we'll live it again. And it's not as simple as right-wing people wanted to kill grandma or left-wing people were trying to save us all. It's not that simple. And I think we do a horrible disservice to ourselves when we treat complicated issues this way. And these authors do an excellent job of breaking this down. I believe this was originally published in German and then reintroduced in English. So, if this bothered you enough to unsubscribe from my channel, you definitely should read this, and you should definitely go and do some soul searching about that period of time because there's a lot there to revisit. And again, if you look at all the content on my channel, this is definitely the shallow end of it, but this is definitely worth digging into, and especially digging into if you believed all the things. So I will stop there. Now, this is Taken. This is one, again, that I talked about just fairly recently. This is Taken by Dr. Karla Turner, Inside the Alien Human Abduction Agenda. And once again, this is, thankfully, I found my original copy. This has recently been reprinted. Somebody got the rights to it from Karla Turner's husband, who's still, I think is still alive, and reprinted her books. So I have the reprint, because I got the reprint, and then sure enough, looked around and bam, found the original copy. So, which is good, because I don't have a hardback copy, and some of these books, when I read them a lot, they start falling apart. Lots of good information about the alien abduction phenomenon, and this is another one of those topics that I didn't really pay a lot of attention to until I started realizing, again, that there was a covert operation angle to this. And Karla Turner was one of the first researchers into the alien abduction phenomenon that addressed that side of it, and basically came out and says, and she says several times in this book, at both the beginning and the end, that in the end, she definitely sums this up really well, that a lot of kind of official abduction researchers were sanitizing a lot of these accounts. And people who were mentioning things about covert operations and like military personnel being involved, they were kind of straining that out and saying, no, that's not really important, or that's not really a thing. And she was like, well, that's not an honest treatment of this information, because then you're making it artificially look like this is all just an alien thing, and it's not. And this is what you get when a lot of these people self-publish, because a lot of the more mainstream books would take those kinds of things out, and that's where you would get a lot of the modern mythology about alien abductions. So this is very much an unsanitized, unvarnished accounts of women who were all abducted and giving their story. So excellent information, and a good time capsule from, I believe, like 1994. I think she passed away, 94. I think she passed away in 1996. But if you can find some of her lectures online, there's several of her lectures on YouTube that you can listen to. Excellent material in there. And there's one where she talks about being followed by a van, and I think they wound up tracking the license plate to like either the NSA or FEMA. And a lot of her personal accounts and some of the people she interviewed were from the Denton, Texas area. And Denton, Texas has a massive FEMA installation, which she implicates in a roundabout way in some of her accounts here. So anyway, excellent book. And again, kind of an unsanitized look at the kind of the raw data from the alien abduction phenomenon. And again, when I started looking at it from that perspective, started realizing, there's a lot more to this than, people, getting delusional and imagining aliens or whatever. So now moving right along, in that same vein, we have Milabs, or Milabs, depending on who you talk to on this. This is Military and Mind Control and Alien Abduction by Dr. Helmut Lahmer and Marion Lahmer. I think I'm saying their names right. And they are both German. They're a German husband-wife team that wrote this. And they wrote some other books. I have one of them that is all in German. And at some point, I'll see if somebody can help me go through that and interpret it. But they wrote some really good stuff about covert operations related to the UFO phenomenon. Now, this is a fairly, probably not as deep as it could be, but again, this is translated and all that. But this is a good starting point and a lot of good information in this about the abduction phenomenon, again, with the military part not strained out of it. And he went around and interviewed a lot of abductees and found these weird accounts of sometimes people would claim to be abducted by aliens, and then there'd be a follow-up where humans would grab them and like stuff them in a van and take them to a secret lab. So a lot of interesting stuff about that, and the mind control implications that this could be. We could be seeing kind of the edge of mind control programs that are using the alien phenomenon as a way to hide these covert operations. Because, if somebody starts telling you about aliens, you're like, yeah, whatever, dude. So, anyway. So that is Milabs, Military Mind Control, and Alien Abduction. I believe that is the last on my list. This is, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that was all 10. And this is the one I was looking for earlier that I was telling you about. This is Lynn Crook, False Memories, The Deception That Silenced Millions. Excellent book about a firsthand account of someone who got attacked by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation and her battle with that, and about her own court case against her own father and dealing with her family and friends and husband and the way it all went down. Very excellent treatment of this. And very recently, I actually heard her interviewed on Nick Bryant's show on YouTube, and that's what led me to buy it. And this is from 2022, so very recent treatment of this. And Lynn Crook is very credible, comes off as a very genuine, decent human being, anyway, this is one I bought a couple of times, not because I lost it, but there were a couple of people I wanted to get this for to read it, because this dovetails nicely with this. So, but it's unfortunate that I'm pretty sure the original version had of this, The Truth About the False Memory Syndrome, had a whole breakdown of the who's who of it in like the first chapter. So at some point, I'll see if I can find an original older version of this that I can dig into. But anyway, there you go. There are 10 books that I had to buy twice. And like I said, I could easily do a list of 20 books on this, because that unfortunately has happened to me a few times. And hopefully, Mrs. Interesting Books Reviewed and I were talking about this earlier. We're trying to figure out a system, because a lot of my books, I don't categorize them in the same way of like the Dewey Decimal System. So I got to figure out a way to classify my books and organize them so I can find all these. And Mrs. Interesting Books Reviewed actually cut me out some little paper things I could put when I take a book out, so I could flag it like you do in the library, so I can put it back where it goes. And I have not been good about using those, but you know, anyway. So I hope y'all are all having a good Sunday evening. And stay tuned. I've got a lot more. And I know the book list, try not to do too many book lists, but when a couple of you had mentioned that about books that I've had to buy twice, and so I thought, I need to do that before I forget it. And one of you said, like, snippets, and so nice I had to buy it twice or something like that. I forget how you use, somebody used an acronym that I thought was pretty clever. And anyway, so hope you appreciated that look at books, and I'm going to get the turn off right before the clock chimes again. So anyway, thank you very much for your attention, and I'll have some more stuff soon enough.